Hello and welcome to the Antlered podcast, where we discuss brews, spirituality, witchcraft, and more.
We hope through the conversation we can continue something and something else and learn something new from ourselves and each other.
Today, I changed mine up a bit, and so did you.
I did.
Today we'll be drinking some beer.
Yeah, we're gonna do tea, but
No, fuck that.
It's been a week, y'all.
Yes.
And then we're gonna talk about Cornish magic and some practices.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
You're looking very nice this evening, or this afternoon,
Oh,
or today.
thank you.
You look nice every day, you know.
Oh, I know.
Alright, don't get me. So come on in.
Yeah.
That's what I was supposed to say. So come on in. Welcome to the Antlered podcast. I'm Elwyn, and I'm a hedge-witch, or just a witch. I'm a generational witch. There you go.
True that. And I am Amanda the moderator, and I will absolutely be no help at all on this episode at all.
I resent that.
No help.
There wouldn't be a podcast if it wasn't for you, let's be honest.
And your life would be so much simpler.
Sometimes I think it's more like you're just like a reporter listening to like Alzheimer's patients talk about the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like sometimes.
I can see that.
Tell me about the war. Oh, it was a terrible time. Do you know how much it was for get teed? And yeah. Stuff like that.
Well, what are you drinking today?
Beer.
Yeah.
I'm drinking.
Oh. Did you not turn your phone on silent?
My phone is always on silent. It's your phone.
Oh dear.
Nice trying to call me out. Anti-hero. Actually, it's not called Anti-hero now. Oh, yes, it is. I just didn't see the anti bit. It's Anti-hero IPA by Revolution Brewing, and it is not endorsed.
And I'm drinking a Firestone Mind Haze IPA, which I've never had before, but Elwyn doesn't like them, so.
Gives me the gut roll.
Ready for your ASMR of the episode?
It's also not endorsed.
Oh.
Excuse you. Sounded like there's a dinosaur. Alright.
So, what are some of the many components of Cornish witchcraft?
Right. Well, let's look at what Cornish witchcraft is as a folk magic.
Where is Cornland?
Don't.
Is it the Midwest?
It's Cornwall.
Yeah.
Cornwall. And it's in the West Country.
Of?
England.
There you go.
However, it isn't quite England.
Would you like to hear my Cornish accent?
Don't.
I'll have time to perfect it before we go to Bose Castle again to see the Museum of Witchcraft.
Please don't.
Okay, ready?
No.
Give me something to say that a Cornish person would say.
I'll give you something easy.
Yeah.
Well, bugger me. Go on.
Well, bugger me.
No, sound like fucking Hagrid.
Well,
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Oh, you're a wizard, Harry.
Bugger me.
Now she's turned into Barney. No. Let's move swiftly on.
Okay, so we're in Cornwall.
No, we're not.
It's the 17th century. I'm just setting the mood.
Why would it be the 17th century?
Shh. You're ruining the mood.
There's no mood.
I'm setting the scene.
Stop it.
You've just worked a long day in the fields, and you're
What
like...
fields?
the fields that Cornwall has.
What?
And you're like, oh, this plow is so heavy. Good thing I have my cow.
What?
Help me.
What?
They're like, I'm going to go back to my cabin and do some fucking magic.
Cow? Where do you think I am? In Egypt? Is this ancient Egypt? Just lash it to an oxen.
They have to reap their barley.
Jeez. Right, anyway.
Look at me. I'm tottering back into my cabin. I'm going to do some witchcraft. I'm going to fuck that witchcraft up. What are we doing?
Have you finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to set the scene for our viewers.
Firstly,
our viewers.
People,
our listeners?
cunning people, pillars, cunning folk, whatever. Yeah. Wise men and women. They oftentimes didn't actually work a full-time job, depending on their success in this sense. They did have work, naturally, that they would do, but oftentimes due to failing health in old age. No, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough.
You don't get to decide.
Yes, I do. Not this time, it's not. That's disrespectful. Now, so that they would also turn to the craft of which they've honed throughout their years in earlier life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Cornish magic, what separates Cornish magic for me from a lot of other forms of folk magic and tradition is it's still fairly prominent. Cornwall was one of the places that was fairly untouched even in the 60s. What?
I know this. Because
Okay.
Cornwall wants to separate from England just kind of like Wales did. And they're like, nah, fuck you guys.
Well, Cornish people have their own language.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very much, well, for a long time, were very much cut off from the rest because they were able to. They had very good forms of fishing, coastal things. They dominated the market in
Fields of barley all over the place.
tin mining. And so they were able to, like economically speaking at least, and they were most self-sufficient in that case. However, they even have their own flag. It's a point of pride for Cornish people, you know?
Yeah.
And yet, because of this, there wasn't much in the way of accessibility to Cornwall and Devon, as there was other parts of the country, especially during like the 1950s, 1960s, where we started getting like high-rise buildings, council estate housing, stuff like that. This wasn't really a thing. Same way with accessible A roads as well that started coming in. Not really the case for Cornwall.
Oh my gosh, is that why it was so scary driving in Cornwall? Because they don't have like as many major highways, and like it looks like we're going through like some kind of Wonderland tunnel trying to get to Boscastle.
Yeah.
The roads were scary.
They're not that scary.
They were,
babe.
They were scary.
They weren't that.
Babe, we like. You don't remember how
I remember,
and
but
even
I'm
more
used to
games
it.
like this is a tiny road. I'm like, yeah, this is good thing we had that tiny little BMW. Because imagine having a van.
This only American could say, because there's no such thing as a tiny BMW. This is exactly my point. Anyways.
Well, I'm just saying the roads were small.
You made us sound like such a pair of wankers. Good job we had the BMW.
Oh, posh.
That could handle it.
It was rental.
It was rental.
We couldn't afford that.
Yeah, I just finished buying it off. No. So, a lot of the traditions and superstition. Now, let's be honest here. A lot of what we regard in the kind of more modern sense of a superstition is witchcraft. It's forms of folk magic. For instance, what's that one thing that I always tell you and you keep doing it?
Water has memory.
That's from Frozen. Don't put
the baby in the corner.
Fuck me. You are literally the worst. Don't put new shoes on
a table. Yeah, I knew that. Don't open umbrellas in the house and don't shatter mirrors.
Everyone knows the broken mirror one. Yeah.
I just shattered a mirror yesterday.
When?
The car mirror.
Well, technically that was the car wash.
Yeah, that was the octopus.
Well, luckily it wasn't a BMW, so right. So a lot of what we would regard as superstition nowadays is still very much, and still is, a prominent part of folk magic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, different traditions. You have to remember that a lot of folk magic revolves around daily life for people, especially in an agricultural sense. You are subjected to the possibility of completely losing everything due to the weather, due to illness, due to other things. So oftentimes you will see, or you will read of, witches of notoriety. When I say witches of notoriety, I mean those who have usually been given a name, those who are known in some circles, whether they be good or bad or both, around Devon and Cornwall, because it was such a prominent place. It's also such an ancient place. There are so many forms of standing stone structures and things that go way back to like Neolithic, early Neolithic as well. It's incredibly important. And also, if you venture into Cornwall, the landscape, as you can see, when we were going through Boscastle, for instance, it's a valley, but it's hidden. You'd never know it was there.
Yeah, that's true.
You'd never know it was there.
Yeah.
It feels like it's such a raw, rich and rough sense of nature.
The 3 R's.
Yeah. Well, apparently I've got a BMW, so I'm all of them now. But it is this sense of power. So it's so primal. Powerful.
I'm a raw, rich and rough, powerful man with a BMW.
Powerful.
I have a question. So, like, you know how like...
Sorry. Go on.
Fuck off.
Oh, now you're insulted. After goading me for the last fucking 10 minutes. Go on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, okay, you know how witchcraft, it's kind of come into a more popular age again because of the internet?
The what?
The internet.
Oh, the internet?
Yes.
Right, yes.
Like because of TikTok and stuff? And
Not
Instagram?
Just that. I would have said
Tumblr?
No, the 90s was probably...
Well, it came into popularity in the 90s too, but I feel like it's coming back in again.
Yes.
My question is, did that happen back like hundreds of years ago too? Do you think like witchcraft became popular to like practice or no? Or do you think it was just something you were always born into? Like, do you think the village girls wanted to be witches when they grew up, even if they weren't born into a witching family?
What?
Why are you looking at me like that's a dumb question?
Give it a minute and you might realize.
So, my dad's a blacksmith, and maybe I want to be a witch when I grow up. Do I go apprentice with the local witch?
Well, you probably wouldn't be a blacksmith. Okay.
Wow!
Well, no, just over the times. Okay, so... Some families, in this case, there was witchcraft that was passed down. However, it's a bit of a weird one because you don't know. It's an anthropological question, really. There are trends, and also you have the correspondence with trends usually coincides with teenage rebellion. Now, naturally, as a Christian Catholic growing up in, say, the 1700s, the ultimate form of rebellion would be witchcraft. Yeah. Do kids practice, turning with the shins and running to kind of make the wind pick up? Yeah. It's something all kids do to some degree.
Do you know what I used to do when I was a kid? I used to pretend that the sun was my best friend, and I used to dance around and talk to it, and I'd sing it songs that I'd make. And I'd play with it out when my mom had laundry hanging outside. I'd play like hide and seek with the sun.
You were a very lonely child.
I was.
What the fuck do you play hide and seek with the sun? You just try and find somewhere where there's shade.
No,
You'll
just like
never
when
find me here.
When it's like sunny out, and then I'd go behind a cloud or something that was passing quickly, and I'd hide behind like some laundry. I'd pop back out, I'm like, arr! Okay, well, I thought it was cute. I was like 4 or 5.
Oh, right. Well, for some reason I had an idea that you were like 12. In my mind, I was like, what? Hitler. Anyway.
God, you're so mean to me. Yeah. I was still playing with like my Polly Pockets at 12 though, because I didn't grow up until I was like 15. I was like, oh no. Mom's like, are you ready to get rid of these yet? I'm like, nah. No. I still play with them. She's like, man, are you sure? Nope. Not yet. I liked it.
I can see that, yeah. Hey, if you like.
Really transmuted into my Sims obsession, I think. It's like playing with Barbies in another way. Anyway.
Okay. So, going back on track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should imagine there was a fantasized thing, but however, witchcraft was such a thing. You know, the idea, people still use it in this country. I don't think they use it like much, but people talk about God-fearing. That we saw yesterday, didn't we? Someone was saying about God-fearing.
Yeah, I want a God-fearing man.
They wanted a God-fearing man. Still archaic.
Married at first sight.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Didn't need to know what we watched.
They did.
You were watching it. Let's just get that straight. Anyways, that was very much kind of that everyone believed that. Everyone, you know, there was a fear of such things, a fear of evil, fear of the devil.
Yeah.
And then naturally there were those people who saw through it. These people were naturally gifted and were natural witches.
Yeah.
Nowadays, not so much. Natural witches are thrown into the mix with people who don't have the natural talent of witchcraft, but yet still persist on becoming accomplished witches. Nothing against them. You can both accomplish the same means, but back then...
That's very interesting, actually, to think about. Well, you said, and Marshall has said too, that anybody can become a witch, it's just not anybody will be proficient at it.
Yeah.
And, like, what if you just really are? You're just a little pleb in the world, and you just really think magic is cool, and you research the heck out of it, and you can't do anything.
And you probably can't do anything. You should.
That's pretty sad, actually.
Not really. Okay. In a world where everyone wins a medal for showing up, we have to come to the realisation that in order for the world to function, everyone can't be a witch or a cunning person. True. People have to be builders. People have to be butchers, bakers and candlestick makers. Not everyone can be a witch. And that's kind of coincides with what you were saying, that the idea of witchcraft is something that is fantasised to a degree and is something that is picked up readily, which there's nothing wrong with. But let's all be honest with each other here.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are finding the path of witchcraft aren't going to carry it through. A lot of them are younger people. Well, you ain't got much of a choice. A lot of them are younger people who are just trying to find themselves. And witchcraft is a fantastic way of doing it. And it's the road to this form of spirituality. But that's the point. Witchcraft, this is going to sound really stupid, but you don't have to be a witch to study or practice witchcraft. There is the witchcraft of the self, of betterment, of spiritual enlightenment and realisation. And then there is that which you ply as a trade in the form of magic because you're a proficient at it. And they are two different kinds of witches.
Yeah.
And many people...
Talking about like love and light witches versus practical witchcraft?
Love and light witches are fine, but they just get on my nerves. Because, no, I'm not being funny, but when it comes to love and light, we're talking about Cornish magic. That doesn't exist. Love and light doesn't exist. It's about the duality, the liminal between two. And being creatures of two in a world of two things, the two different aspects. That spectrum, we exist within the middle of it. The both ways or bothy ways witch is one who can curse and bless or heal. And there are also what was called as black witches, which were the ones who just did baneful magic. And people assumed that they were corrupted by magic, but in truth, that is their own corruption through things that may have happened to them in life because of other people and themselves.
Trauma.
Which then they use to empower and take back that which is denied to them through magic.
Ooh.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're evil or bad in that sense. So, yeah, there you have it. And there's the wind chime in the background because you insisted on putting it up.
ASMR. They probably won't even hear it when I cut this out, to be honest.
Asthma.
So, like, what or how has Cornish magic influenced your practice specifically?
Hugely.
Like how?
It's pretty much primarily what I practice. And before I was exposed to Cornish magic, I was taught Cornish magic. Just wasn't called Cornish magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It was honestly like the moment I started to realise young in life that this is Cornish magic, this is West Country. Also forms of Norfolkian magic, which is Norfolk, which is in the East, which is very similar in many ways.
I love Norwich.
That's the city of it.
I know, but I was just saying.
And yeah, there are so many similarities in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's... What did you ask?
How has Cornish magic influenced your practice?
Oh, yeah, that's it. So basically, it's not that it's influenced. I was doing it and I wasn't aware that it was Cornish magic.
Yeah.
Until I then realised, oh, this is like Cornish magic. Looked into it. Cornish magic. I do that.
Yeah.
I do that too.
Yeah.
I also do this. And it's just one thing after the other. I'm like, holy shit. Like, they've been teaching me Cornish magic all my life and they never... Yeah.
Well, maybe they just didn't. I mean, they didn't realise it either.
Well, I should imagine that Cornish folk don't actually call it Cornish magic either.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't be like, we're going to practice Welsh magic today, and you live in Wales. Just say magic.
Is that the same thing as I just said?
It was Shrek and Shrek, babe. Shrek and Shrek.
Shrek and Shrek. You just used another country. That's all you did. Yeah.
Mine sounded smarter.
Well, you know,
I sounded
English
more
people saying a full English breakfast. Oh, yeah.
It's a full English.
I'm going to go and get an American hamburger.
What is in a full English breakfast? Traditionally, because this is a debate.
Oh, it's difficult. It's difficult if you're going along the lines of tradition.
Traditionally.
However, for me, we've got the main staples of a full English. The sausage.
Which is not a hot dog, though.
No, it's a proper sausage.
Yeah.
Sausage, bacon, beans. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Bacon, you mean ham slices for Americans?
No, bacon.
Yeah, ham slices.
Proper bacon.
Yep.
Not the streaky stuff that's full of fat. The proper bacon.
Ham slices.
If you like Canadian bacon, right? Bacon.
Ham slices.
Can you stop? Because you're confusing people. And then tomatoes. The tomatoes are either fried, but I prefer tinned plum tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? You also need a fried slice in there.
A fried slice of what?
Bread.
Oh.
You just get oil in a pan and then fry the bread.
On both sides?
Yeah. And then you need an egg, naturally.
Did you say beans?
Yeah, you have beans. You need a side of toast as well.
Did you say tomatoes yet?
Yes. Black pudding as well. You do need blood pudding because it's made of blood. Mushrooms. Important.
I didn't see many mushrooms when we got before we went vegan.
No.
I didn't see many mushrooms. Only like one full English we had
Honestly,
when I was over there.
I don't even want to be vegan. I'm talking about a full English and I want one.
We've done very good vegan full English breakfasts here, though.
Yeah. Anyway. Chips. Some people add chips. Personally, if you don't have chips, you need some kind of potato-based thing. Bubble and squeak is good.
Yeah, bubble and squeak is good, but you haven't made good bubble and squeak yet.
That's because you've got shit veg here. Now, I think that's about it. I think I may have missed anything. No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
Oh gosh.
What?
Nothing.
No.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the West Country and how I think a lot of the practices changed in England and also in America, but how, what you were talking about earlier, how Cornwall remained so isolated.
Yeah, it was more remote in that sense.
And it remained pagan, I actually looked this up, research, until the late 5th century, even though Christianity was popular in the rest of England as a whole.
Yeah.
And so my question then is, if you can theorize what else, besides geographically, could have kept Cornwall keeping Christians out, I guess. Do you think it was just the spirit of place? They held on to the same pagan beliefs?
No, it's exactly what I told you. People didn't know how to get to it. You either got there by boat, but it's true, you either got there by boat or that was it, because
Christians weren't coming. They weren't trying to get in there.
I'm sure that they were, but when they got there, they probably never came back. It was primarily people just living, doing what they are doing, and they didn't have the same trade routes inland. They had trade routes on the sea, which funneled and allowed them to, people didn't come inland into Cornwall. They just stayed by the sea because they were always picking up trading and stuff. So the heart of Cornwall, of the agriculture and the people who lived inland, stayed predominantly pagan because of it. There was no need for influence. Imagine it as a country in this sense that is cut off. Very difficult. Florida. Very difficult to get to. Not really in the same forms of modes of transport in the way of roads, but there is a port, and in that port you're shipping out tons of tin. People coming and picking up the tin, buying the tin, sell it. You've got smuggling and all sorts of other things. There's all sorts of forms of trade going on. People bringing stuff in all the time. It's perfect. Everyone's happy, including the Cornish, because they don't have to have people walking about all over their land. They come through there and do it that way. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's the same for the Welsh in that regard, as you are right, because the terrain of Wales, so many hills, so much wooded area, rocky areas as well, mountainous almost. For the Romans just couldn't manage it. They never really, they tried, but they never had the same hold over Wales as they did over the rest of England. And the reason being is primarily because of the Druids. That's why they were there. It was the up in Anglesey was where the Druids, kind of the grove of the Druids and stuff, where I dug. And yeah, it's very strange, very spiritual place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the only reason why the Romans persisted there, because they had to wipe out the Druids, because the Druids are the ones who literally rallied people and
Do you think there is a different feeling or vibe to those lands that haven't been, I guess you would say, colonized in such a way?
Yes, definitely. I know it sucks if you're not from there. Sorry, but it is. There is. It's wilder in that way. You can feel it. It's not just the way it looks. You feel it. You feel almost a sense more in the way of belonging. You feel it's the difference between. I suppose it's the difference between a reserve animal and a zoo animal. A reserve animal has all this, and it's just purely there are invisible lines, shall we say, that keep that animal in check. The animal doesn't realise. Whereas in the zoo, the animal had everything in almost a perfect what other people, sense of Christianity, think is best for them in that regard. And it's all smooth and flat and catered for them. And it's just false. I'd say that's very much the same in that regard. That it's just not, I don't know, it's Starbucks.
Starbucks.
It's what it is. It's what any form, most of the things like Christianity, it's Starbucking. They just Starbucked everything. Wiped out any form of mythos, mythologies, legends, beliefs. And those that they couldn't, because the people were too resolute, they attacked from the inside by trying to just adopt ways and kind of bring them into conjunction with their own beliefs, just so that people were happy and it didn't create too much of a problem.
Was there a feeling of danger at all?
Where?
In those places that feel wild, or...
No, I'd say there's more in the way of reverence. I've never felt small, and I've been to some of the biggest cathedrals in the world, because I like, they're cool, they are cool. However, I never felt small. I never had that sense of reverence. However, out in the wilder places, such as Wales, Cornwall, even Norfolk, especially the Broads and stuff, Norfolk and the Fenlands, there is this sense of almost insignificance in the face of it all. It's a humbling feeling, but it's also this, and although it humbles you, it also connects you to everything. You feel all of a sudden that what you are and everything that came before just washes over the landscape. The landscape is this unchanged thing. And then it starts to make you think. It starts to make you think of what on earth have other people done in other places that have been more, to change that, to actually manage to change and destroy primarily that sense of sacred reverence in a place. It's quite sad, I suppose. I've never had that in a building of any kind in that sense, to be honest.
Yeah.
You and I went to Stonehenge. There is a similar feeling there. And even
there is, but there's not.
There's not, because it's become touristy.
Yeah, because
it would be nice.
Part of Stonehenge is almost like you're looking at all the facts. You go into the museum first. Yeah, you go into the museum first, right? And then you take a bus up to Stonehenge. So I don't know if any of you have been there, but that's kind of just... So it almost like...
Then you walk around.
It feels like a little Disney parky, because you go to the Disney park part, and then you have it almost ruins it in a way.
But on the solstice...
I wish it was the other way around. You went to the building and just saw it first, because then that would be more of a... oh my gosh, look at how old this is. It stood for so long, and then learned all the facts about it. But
on the solstice, people are allowed to walk in
and get close to it.
Yeah, as they used to do. People used to climb all over it and get on it and watch the sunrise. And they can't stop you. They can't stop you because you just simply say, "I'm a pagan."
Yeah.
Regardless of what that belief may be, I'm a pagan, and so therefore today is a sacred holiday. You can't stop me from doing what my ancestors have done thousands of years ago.
That is actually really fucking cool.
It is. And the police are there just to make sure everything's okay, but people turn up, they play instruments, they smoke pot. They do though. Everyone plays music, and then they celebrate and the sun comes up, and it's grand. It's grand. But yeah,
that would never fly in America, just so you know.
Well, I don't know. I still think
don't
it's weird.
touch the monuments.
Don't touch the monuments. What about that bear over there with that pack of balls? Oh, you can shoot that. A very strange idea of what's sacred.
Well.
You won't get into that. Anyways.
What are some of your favorite Cornish magic practices you currently practice?
We're going to do about the hard things. The relationship between familiar spirits, local spirits and entities is one that in Cornish practice, there are others, but Cornish practice has really, the idea of a pixie, or piskie, as it was known, is Cornish, the Cornish piskie. And yet it's one of the most predominantly famous forms of entity or spirit, if you like. There are so many other forms as well, but even that, just the way in which you interact, I suppose, the way that you treat things, also that of the devil as well. The devil being almost a spirit of the land or place. The interaction between that, it's a huge thing, because oftentimes the devil is almost an initiatory symbol or figure for the Cornish witch. it's almost that of a subject of truth. Most witches, in this sense, gather their information, their art, their skills, their magic, their knowledge from spirits. And that's something that you don't see much in nowadays. Those who we shall say aren't natural witches, they can just go on Pinterest and get something.
Hey, I'm not Pinterest because I do love a pin.
Yeah. You know that's a derogatory term now, Pinterest witch.
Really?
Yeah, well, you can clearly see why, can't you? But, I mean...
I don't know. I find a lot of good information on Pinterest. Well, I verify it. It's not like I take it.
How the fuck do you verify a spell?
Well, no. Well, you know what I mean? I just go on there and I'm like, okay, it's A, B, and C, and then it'll spit out information to me, and then I'll go research it. I'll Google it. I'll be like, okay, is sage actually good in this working or something? Or is this actually a thing that is a thing? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. But it's a good idea for pretty pictures.
You finished?
I think so.
Okay. The point I was trying to make is it's very different when you're interacting with spirits and they're actually teaching you that in the way of ancestral spirits, other forms of entity, as in other, as in fae, if otherworldly, if you like, and that of the king and queen of Elfane as well, because oftentimes they're a very good way of getting things to go away if you don't want them there. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Cecil Williamson.
Cecil Q. Williamson.
Yeah.
Okay.
As he is the founder of the Museum of Witchcraft in Bose Castle.
Yeah.
And he... I
thought you were going to continue just for...
No.
Okay. He was the founder of the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic.
I know a lot of the items in there are actually his. And there's an actual private collection of Cecil Williamson you can actually request to see. If you make a date of books and other journals.
They're just books in general. But it wasn't the first place in Bose Castle. There was one in the Isle of Wight, and there was another one I think that was further up. I think it was near Scotland. I could be wrong there. And on both, well, the first account, I believe that they were run out of town. The villagers didn't want them there. Someone even tried to set fire to it.
That's so... so offensive.
The second one was in, I think it was the Isle of Wight. It may have been the Isle of Man, actually. I think it was the Isle of Man. Anyways, there is where he invited Gerald Gardner to stay. And Gerald Gardner and him didn't really see eye to eye in the way of magic. Cecil Williamson being much in the study of low magic and Egyptian forms of magic, whereas Gerald Gardner was all of high magic and fancy pants, swords and robes and whatever. They fell out, however, after Gerald Gardner tried to attack Cecil Williamson. Let's leave that, mate. Leave it there. I'm not a fan of Gardner. All right?
Yeah.
If you don't know, Gerald Gardner was basically the founder of Gardnerian Wicca. He was also a lecturer.
Was he another, like, Aleister Crowley?
Aleister Crowley was also, yeah. Which, funnily enough, was another one that Cecil Williamson didn't really have much to do with.
Yeah.
I think he was happy. He's really an unsung hero in the form of modern magic. Anyways, the final place of the museum is now in Bose Castle, which is in Cornwall, which, funnily enough, is perfect for it. Cecil Williamson, as a young boy, from what I understand, he lived in a village. Outside his garden gate, there was a crowd forming and people shouting. There was a ruckus. He wasn't very old. I don't know how old he was. He was probably like 12, 13, something like that. I can't remember. Where there was lots of farmhands and people shouting, and they were basically crowding around this old elderly woman, and they stripped her naked, claiming her to be a witch. And he pushed through past all the people, and then threw himself over the woman, and the crowd kind of kicked and beat him, but he took the brunt of their aggression. It was sometime later, as he was walking past her house, that she called out to him and offered him a cup of tea to come in and chat. And that is where the beginning of, I think he may have been younger than that, maybe he was 8, I can't remember, but the beginning of his interest in forms of folk magic, sort of true country magic, if you like, came about. Now, there was also something about him in school as well. I think it was in a form of a boarding school that he went to. He, from what I understand, there was a bully. The boy used to bully him, and one of the dinner ladies of the school taught him an old thing that she'd learned, where they would make a swing, and he would get on the swing and light a very small fire underneath it, and he would repeat the words of this boy to go away for I think it was 15 minutes, 20 minutes every day at the same time. And he would swing above the smoke. Then when he went back during the summer holidays, he got, I think it was the gardener or someone like that to help him construct a swing out rope and to carry on doing it. When he went back to school after the summer holidays, the boy had a rather unfortunate skiing accident and broke his legs.
Jesus Christ.
Never came back to school. It was then...
Both legs?
I think so. He never came back to school. So, anyways. Gardner himself had a very rich and quite eccentric life. He worked on a tobacco plantation that his father sent him to work on a tobacco plantation.
In America? Or?
I can't remember. I think it was in Africa, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I believe. And then when he came back, he did a little bit of work in the way of set designing, directing, and also producing or writing film. And then he went into MI5 as well, the Secret Service. Obviously, we don't know much about that. A very interesting man, and also very private in many ways. Didn't write much in the way about his own work. One of the things I like about him, I don't know if I may have mentioned this before, but he used to practice something called putting the sun to bed, which was basically, he would, where we walked actually in Bosecastle, he would take a lamp with a box of matches up and watch the sun rise, and as the sun would rise he would light the lamp and then carry it back down, almost in a way of putting the sun to bed. Now, through forms of magic, it is that in the way of perception. What we perceive changes and influences the outside world, and that is something that you could clearly see in this form of ritual. He doesn't hold the sun, but the idea is that once the light vanishes, he holds that light within the lantern, which is quite nice.
Yeah. So, similar to what I did, but just in a different way.
What?
Oh, I played peekaboo with the sun.
No. No.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, I did good.
You did good.
Well, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as The Antlered Crown, or on YouTube as Elwyn the Witch.
I offer a variety of readings, including bone, tarot, medium connection, deity confirmations, as well as spiritual consultations, which are done live and scheduled via Zoom. I'm also offering spell work and custom merchandise, all of which you can find on my website, theantleredcrown.com.
You can also join our community on Patreon. You can get access to our Discord server, group meetings, one-on-ones with Elwyn, tutorials, discount other goodies depending on the tier level you choose. I would also like to add to that we have book club usually weekly, so you can join in on the book club.
I thought we're doing a knitting club as well. What do you reckon?
A knitting club?
No.
We don't have time.
All right.
If I quit my job, yes.
Speaking of which, here is our Antlered Crown patron shout out.
Courtney, Lisa Marie, Bella, Malachite, Lacey, Megan, and Aaron.
And that is the weekly shout out.
Yep.
Next time we'll be talking to a TikToker who works with Dionysus and is as funny as hell.
Mm-hmm. And always remember,
Tip your witch bitch.
Bye-bye.
Bye.